Hi, I'm Aris Maragudakis, Director of World Paper Money at Stack's Bowers Galleries.
And I'm Peter Trillia, Director of U.S. Currency.
Today on this episode of Crossing the Block, we're here in our California headquarters inside our Griffin Studios to highlight one of the premier pieces of the U.S. portion of our A&A sale.
Which is this 1890s American Banknote Company presentation frame, which is featured at lot 20035. We had the privilege of selling this item in 2019. And it was a remarkable piece, and it will always go down as one of the coolest things I've ever had the privilege of selling in Stack's Bowers auction history. My favorite thing is the fact that this is one of just a handful that were ever offered by the American Banknote Archives, I believe in the early 1990s. And out of all the pieces, all but this one was believed to be donated to the Yale Museum of Numismatics. So what we're actually holding right now is probably the only available example to collectors.
Peter, what was the purpose of them creating these pieces? Was it simply for presentation, or was it an effort to try and get some business and showcase what they could create?
It's an excellent question, Aris. So it's not uncommon for a lot of the banknote companies who were creating banknotes and work for many countries to have portfolios to show their examples of the quality of work. This is not the case. This is 75 pounds. This is clearly something that they did for themselves, right? You have such amazing vignettes, you have allegorical figures, we even have stamps and obviously foreign banknotes. The majority of the work the American Banknote Company was for other countries. And I think this was designed to show their work, perhaps in their building, with several other frames. And it's a great piece of history. But to answer your question directly, I think this is something that was more for their self-use.
Like a wow factor when you walk into their headquarters or something like that, possibly.
Correct.
Peter, as you look at the board here, what would you say is the most important or most significant banknotes on the U.S. side?
Yeah, that's a good question, Aris. There's some really incredible banknotes here, but I'd have to say the most interesting is going to be the $50 interest-bearing note. There's probably only 3 or 4 known in all grades combined that have sold through auctions, and that's a very significant piece. Unfortunately, it should be here permanently. I don't recommend taking it out, but for me, that would be by far the most significant. But I'd love to turn that question to you because there's some significant world banknotes. What would you consider the most significant?
I mean, for me personally, I think the most important banknotes on the world side here would be the 2 notes on the bottom. They're both from Panama, but it takes place when Panama was actually controlled by Colombia. These banknotes are exceptionally rare, very difficult to find in issued or proof form. And I'll echo what you said. I mean, I wouldn't recommend removing anything from this frame and trying to put it in a personal holder. I think everything should stay exactly as is. I see a lot of national banknotes also. Are there any nationals on here that would be significantly rare to find out in the wild outside of being available on this frame?
Oh, absolutely. You have some proofs. Again, these are all proof notes, but you have proof from Washington, District of Columbia, which is a first charter, which is virtually impossible to acquire in private hands and in issued form. But yeah, that would be the most significant for the nationals, in my opinion.
What's your favorite aspect of the entire design?
Yeah, so this is interesting, Aris. You would probably assume that I would say a banknote, but actually the coat of arms in the center, which is, believe it or not, kind of hard to miss because you're so focused on all the color of the banknotes. That's probably my favorite imagery on the frame. And of course, I am a big fan of eagles. So we have an eagle that is used on some vignettes of American banknotes. It's not that large, maybe 6 inches wide, but for me it's important and it's fun to look at. How about yourself, Aris?
I mean, I'm a little biased here, but obviously there's, my own personal identity. I identify real strongly with the state of New York, and that's present front and center right below the coat of arms that you mentioned. But more importantly than anything else, I'm a proud Greek American, so obviously I'm very partial to the 25 drachma that's over here, just below the Chile note. But so many of these pieces, especially the stories and the themes within the vignettes, are remarkable, and it's just a lot of them I don't think I've ever encountered in the wild as we're looking at all the world banknotes that we carry here and we sell. Some of these vignettes truly are special, remarkable. I love the portraits too, but if I had to pick, obviously I would go with the Greek note.
You know, and the estimate on this is $150,000 to $250,000, which many might say seems expensive. It is. It's definitely a figure that you need to digest. But I'll tell you right now, out of all the things that have gone through our firm, this is one of the most significant, and actually, I believe, truly undervalued. When we sold it in 2019, it brought $90,000 hammer. I really expect this to bring that or more this time around. And I wish the bidders a great luck, and really this is just possibly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, simply because the remaining pieces are believed to be in the Yale Museum, which will never in our lifetime be available for collectors. So good luck.
Now, Peter, really quick, before we let you go here, I want to dive into something that you said. You mentioned this being one of the more significant and cool pieces that we've ever offered here as a firm. Mm-hmm. Now, we've sold $1 million banknotes. We've sold the Grand Watermelon. We've sold the Marcy note. Obviously, those seven-figure pieces, we're not really expecting that here. But when you talk about the rarity and the unattainability of something like this and how it would look, you know, it's a piece of art, right? Like, you could see this, sure. If you owned a mansion, you'd put this up on the wall. So when you look at it from that perspective, do you think that the 90,000 or the 150,000 that we're expecting this to bring might even be low in terms of comparing it to some of the other banknotes that we've sold?
Sure, and you know, rarity doesn't always equate to value, and vice versa. So in this particular case, it's not a Marcy, it's not a Grand Watermelon, it's not an 1804 dollar. It might not have that significant historical importance, but in a sense, it has maybe more so, because you have so many different pieces. Obviously, the American Banknote Company, if they didn't exist, we wouldn't have virtually any of the obsoletes ever printed. We would have a fraction of the nationals and a fraction of all the world currencies. So this is definitely a scholar type item. It's a statement piece. You put it on your wall. Everyone's going to love it. If they don't know what it is, they're going to ask you questions. And it's a great conversation piece. And it is truly remarkable. I can't emphasize that anymore. It really is. And I'm clearly, you can probably hear that I'm a bit passionate about it. Sure. I'm excited to offer it again. I didn't think I'd have that opportunity after 2019. But to answer your question, I think at any price it sells for, I just think it's a good deal. No matter, even if it brought $500,000.
Sure.
I just think it's a good deal, and I genuinely mean that.
Well, it's one of those things. A lot of our clients, you know, a lot of this stuff gets purchased and tucked away into safes, and very rarely do you have the opportunity to display your passion for numismatics on a wall. And I think this is one of those unique pieces.
Right.
I'm very partial to the look of gold in general. I mean, this is gilded. They gilded the lily on this one. I love the fact that you've got the embossed American Banknote Company on the bottom over there, and it really stands out. But can you talk to me just a little bit about the condition of this? Is there anything that you would say?
So condition-wise, it's not perfect. It does have some issues here and there, and some what I would call moderate to light restoration. So the frame itself is in this gold paint. You can tell it has some chipping here and there over the years, some minor restorations of the actual frame. Now on the actual backing, it looks like this is probably cardboard. All these proofs, some might be on India paper, which is a very thin paper, and some will be on cardboard itself, glued on here. And I'm sure it's a very strong adhesive from 130 years ago. But there is some restoration here, some color touching throughout. There's some light water stains. There is some overall toning. But again, it's all you're going to get, right?
Right.
So
Sure.
At what
Sure.
What degree does the restoration compromise the rarity, which is nothing, zero, absolutely zero. So, but you should be aware, it is not a perfect piece, but it does present very well. And again, I think one could study here all the banknotes, and there's a tremendous amount of stamps.
Canada up there too. I didn't
Canadian
even notice
stamps.
that.
It looks like it looks like all the same stamps. So, Nova Scotia. But again, it's really cool, and it's actually makes me want to actually do a little more research now than when I first did the cataloging a couple years ago. So again, thank you very much. This lot 20035 will be on the auction block on August the 18th.
Best of luck when this crosses the block.